Hello. For my video essay, I chose to talk about DC versus Marvel brand identity. It's sort of a broad idea of what I'm going to be talking about is I believe that DC often deals with their comic books more dark-toned, universal ideas with more godlike characters. Where on the other hand, in the comic that I chose to refer to is All-Star Superman. And for Marvel, the comic I chose to refer to is Spider-Man Kraven's Last Hunt. I know that one well. And it can be dark, but in general, Marvel is more of a light comic. And it deals with more personal struggles, human relatability, and more relatable characters. You know, there are godlike characters in Marvel, but they're oftentimes more relatable to us, like human beings. So starting with All-Star Superman, in this comic book, Superman is poisoned by Lex, radiation poisoning, and instead of kind of just crumbling into tears and spending his last all remaining days with Lois, what he does is he just tries to tie back into what his symbol is on his chest, which is hope. And including all Star comic books, but in all Superman comics, this S represents hope. It's the symbol of the House of El, and it's represents that everybody born is a force for good. They even put that in one of the movies. And that's what he does. He just tries to leave a footprint on Earth before he dies when he finds out how much time he has left. And he tries to do good deeds and just inspire hope. Like on there's a scene in the comic where he's talking to someone who's about to end their life. And instead of just saving them, because he can, instead of just saving them, he just stands there and he talks to them and he inspires hope. That's what DC's brand does. They deal with more universal ideas. The universal idea of hope is well strung in this comic of All-Star Superman. Well, on the other hand, Lex represents Lex doesn't necessarily, they don't dive deep into his personal problems as a villain in this comic book. He's more of like us. He represents human beings or society and our problems that we deal with, like jealousy. And he thinks that Superman and his ideals make us weak. Not even his ideals, his power makes us weak as humans. So and that's why he poisons him. And I think that that's another good example of how DC's brand is dealing with Lex. Instead of dealing with his personal problems, they use Lex to represent more of a universal societal idea, and that we as human beings are jealous of people. Obviously there's no people like Superman, but ideas like Superman, and it makes us weak. Now the other hand, Marvel is kind of the opposite of that. So in Spider-Man's Kraven's Last Hunt, when Kraven kills Spider-Man or kills Peter, that kind of is a representation of death and rebirth. But the more important thing is that when Spider-Man wakes up, the first thing that he thinks about is MJ. And he's like, oh, what has MJ been going through? What are her struggles? And that's not necessarily selfish, as opposed to Superman, who was just thinking about the world and making it a better place. Well, Spider-Man was thinking about his girlfriend and his wife and what she was going through. And that's more on point with Marvel's brand, dealing with human struggles and what we as people struggle with on a daily basis. And the same thing can be said opposed to Kraven, because when Kraven kills Spider-Man, Spider-Man is the one villain that he can never defeat him. And he thinks that once he defeats him, he'll finally be at peace. And after he defeats Spider-Man, he goes back to his little area, his quarters, and he thinks to himself about everything he's been through, what his parents put him through, how he's gotten here. And in the end, his chase of identity and self-fulfillment is empty, even though he defeated Spider-Man, and he decides to end his life. And I think that that's a perfect idea of what Marvel's brand is, because Kraven, even though he did what he thought was gonna save his identity and get a sense of self-fulfillment, in the end it didn't work, because his idea of what Spider-Man should be is the reason that drove him to kill him. And he tried to be like Spider-Man, and it didn't work because Kraven's idea of heroism was wrong, and that's why he ended his life. And Spider-Man ended up going back to MJ. The first thing he thought about when he woke up after death was going back to MJ. He went to see her, and he realized that she was okay, and Spider-Man fought his way back into his life. So I think that those two comic books, All-Star Superman and Spider-Man Kraven's The Last Hunt, are perfect example of DC and Marvel brand identity. Because in All-Star Superman, it deals with Superman and his ideals as universal ideas, along with Lex and his universal ideas of jealousy and humanity's society. And it deals with Superman's universal ideas of godlike men and hope. And then on the other side, Marvel deals with personal struggles. Spider-Man's personal struggle when he dies, when he gets out, his personal struggle with relating back to his girlfriend and what she went through, as well as Kraven's personal struggle with self-identity and self-fulfillment.